Hey guys, this is an instructional video on how to determine if you may possibly have a bad capacitor on the blower motor of your central air unit. Now, what happened with me is I woke up this morning and my home temperature was around 77 degrees when it should have been about 71 or 72. So immediately I knew something was wrong. Went outside, I could see I had freezing all on my copper lines. My compressor had ice around it. And then when I came inside and took off my panel here, all my coils here, all this here was frozen, pretty much a solid block of ice. And also my vent or fan was not blowing. So immediately I thought I had a freon leak, which is the most common thing you think of whenever you have a lot of freezing like that. But and I live in Louisiana, so it's kind of important to have an air conditioner in the middle of the summer, which this is July, and your air conditioner never goes out at a convenient time. For example, today is July 4th and my air conditioner went out, so there are no HVAC places open, and if you find one that's open, they usually want to charge you time and a half or double the rate to come out and fix your problem. Well, I was actually able to find an HVAC guy that I could get on the phone, and that's exactly what he told me, that it would be time and a half, but he was actually kind enough to give me a few tips to try to determine what was wrong with my unit, because I guess he didn't want to come out any more than I wanted to pay him to come out. So what he told me was that if the fan wasn't working, it was more than likely the capacitor or the blower unit, and he instructed me how to check that. Now, I'm not an HVAC guy, I'm not an electrician, I don't have all the fancy tools to check if there's voltage going or anything else. But I will show you a simple trick that he told me about that actually worked for me and helped me to identify the problem. So first and foremost, of course, you should cut the power to your system so there's no electrical issues or no power going to the system at the time you're working on it. Okay, and what I did just for speed purposes is I already took off the panels. There's a panel that covers your coils here. I took that off, and here's your blower. This is the capacitor, which I believe was the problem, and on the side here is the motor that the wires run to. So basically what was happening was my outside unit was running, my fan was running outside the house, but inside the house this blower here was not running. And whenever it would try to turn on, it would just give a humming sound. So I knew something wasn't right. Now what the HVAC guy instructed me to do was to determine if it was the fan or the capacitor was to try to manually start the fan whenever the unit was trying to keep on. And the way you do that is, it's if you're a little older, it's the equivalent of popping the clutch on a standard transmission vehicle. I'm going to reach around here if you can see it. I got a light so you can see it a little better. But in there is like a little turbine that you can see. That's the inside of your fan. And you can see in here that turns. Now that should be turning whenever you have power to the unit. That was not turning for me. So what I did was I have a little skewer here because I didn't want to stick my fingers in there. And what I did was I know I said turn the power off, but you do have to have the power on for this, just to do this test. But whenever the unit kicked on and I heard that hum, I went in here, I reached right around. I don't know if you can see. There you go. I reached right around, I stuck this in there, gave it one spin forward, and the fan kicked on. Now, what that tells me is that the capacitor is bad, because what this capacitor does is it gives a little boost to your motor to help that fan initially turn over. And then once it's like a starter, and once the fan starts, then its job is done. So that helped me to identify that my capacitor here was bad. Now, I couldn't get a capacitor today because it's July 4th. However, by doing this procedure, I was able to manually start my air conditioning unit, let it run for a few hours so I could cool my house, and then I would kick it off and I would let it sit for a few hours, and whenever the house started to get warm again, I would turn it back on. But at least I was able to keep my house cool until I could get the part. It was just a stopgap measure until I can get the capacitor for tomorrow. Now, of course, when you change the capacitor, obviously then you definitely want to cut the power. And it's a very simple thing. Like I said, I'm not an HVAC guy, so I'm not comfortable doing a lot of this stuff, but it's very simple. All it is, this is a little rubber boot cover, and there's two plugs, one for this wire and one for this one, and they plug into the capacitor. It's very simple to change. You can probably change it out in about 5 minutes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn my unit on, and I'm going to show you how to turn this fan on. Now it's very quick, and you may not be able to see it very well with the camera because I got to kind of watch my hands, but that's why I want to do a dry run before to show you exactly what I was doing. So now I'm coming over. As you can see, my thermostat says 77 degrees in here. So I'm going to flip it on to cool, and you're going to hear a humming sound in a minute. And that's going to be my fan trying to kick on. Okay, there it is. It's humming. I'm turning it forward. Now you can see my fan is turned on without the capacitor, and I'm able to cool my house. Now once you get the fan going, if you can't get the part right away, you need to put these panels back, because that's sucking a lot of airflow in there and you're losing a lot of air pressure. So it's important to put those panels back on, which I'm not going to do now. But it's just a stopgap measure to help you determine if you have a bad capacitor or not. Now it still may be something else, but I'm 99.9% sure that it is the capacitor, and I will get the part tomorrow and change it myself. It'll cost me about $20 as opposed to $100 or maybe $150 to have an HVAC guy come out and do it. So that's the end of this video. Good luck.